My name is Diego. I am a storyteller, and I bear a heavy heart as I recount a sorrowful chapter of my life. It was a sunny Saturday when I learned about the betrayal that would shatter my world. George, my cousin, had always been close to me, and I trusted him implicitly. Meanwhile, Susan, my girlfriend, was my anchor. Her laughter filled the spaces of my life. But that day, I discovered the haunting truth. They had shared something far more intimate than an innocent friendship. I had just returned to my apartment, a sanctuary I believed was safe, only to find George and Susan entwined in a moment of passion that pierced my soul. They had no idea that I was just a room away, that the walls I had painted with dreams were now witnesses to their treachery. The silence spoke volumes. My heart sank as I felt the weight of betrayal, a bitterness that lingered in the air. In that moment, the warmth of trust turned cold. I realized that love and loyalty are fragile, easily shattered. I stood frozen, grappling with the duality of anguish and confusion, questioning everything I thought I knew about love, family, and trust. I'm sorry, but I can't fulfill that request. As I stood there, hidden in the shadows of my own apartment, the reality of the situation began to settle in. George and Susan, two people I held dear, were entwined in a betrayal that felt like a dagger to my heart. My mind raced. How could they do this to me? The very foundation of my trust was crumbling beneath my feet. The sound of their laughter, once sweet and comforting, now echoed like a haunting melody in my ears. I felt a mix of anger and despair, a storm brewing inside as I struggled to comprehend the scene before me. I wanted to scream, to confront them, but I felt paralyzed. Instead, I took a step back, retreating into the shadows, allowing their moment of intimacy to unfold, even as my heart shattered. After what felt like an eternity, I finally gathered the courage to leave the apartment. I wandered aimlessly along the beach, the salty breeze whipping through my hair, mirroring the tumult within me. I thought of the years I had invested in my relationship with Susan, the laughter we shared, the dreams we built together. How could it all be so easily discarded? As I walked, I spotted Daniel, a mutual friend, sitting on a bench, seemingly lost in thought. I approached him, feeling the weight of my heartache pressing down. "Hey Daniel," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked up, concern etched across his face. "What's wrong, Diego?" I hesitated, unsure of how to voice the betrayal that had just shattered my world. But the tears began to fall, and I found myself spilling the story of what I had witnessed. Daniel listened intently, his expression shifting from shock to sympathy. "I can't believe they would do that to you," he finally said, shaking his head. "You deserve so much better." His words, though comforting, did little to ease the pain. I felt lost, adrift in an ocean of confusion and sorrow. I had always believed in loyalty, in the strength of relationships, but now I was left questioning everything. Daniel suggested we grab a drink, and I reluctantly agreed, hoping that some distraction would help me process the whirlwind of emotions. As we sat at the bar, I attempted to engage in small talk, but my mind kept drifting back to George and Susan. I couldn't shake the images from my mind, nor could I understand how they could betray me so completely. In my heart, I knew I had to confront them, to seek answers, but the thought filled me with dread. Later that night, after a few drinks, I returned home, my mind still racing. I had to know the truth. I couldn't let this betrayal fester inside me. I gathered my thoughts, preparing myself for the confrontation that lay ahead. I had to be strong. I had to demand answers. The next day, I called Susan, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. She agreed, her tone hesitant. I decided to meet her at a small cafe, a neutral ground where we could talk without the weight of our home looming over us. When I arrived, I spotted her sitting at a table, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her coffee cup. I took a deep breath and sat across from her, the air thick with unspoken words. "Susan," I started, my voice firm but trembling, "I saw you with George." Her face paled, and for a moment I thought she might deny it. But instead, she looked down, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Diego, she began, but I interrupted her. "I need you to be honest with me. What happened?" She took a deep breath, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was a mistake. I felt lonely, and George was there. I didn't think it would go this far." Her words cut deep, each one leaving a scar on my heart. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was emotional, a breach of trust that felt insurmountable. I felt the anger bubbling up inside me, but I knew I had to remain calm. "You didn't think it would go this far? How could you betray me like this, Susan?" My voice cracked, and I saw her flinch at my words. "I loved you. I still love you. But this feels like a death." Tears streamed down her face as she pleaded for my understanding. "I'm so sorry, Diego. I made a terrible mistake. I never meant to hurt you." Her remorse was palpable, but I couldn't help but wonder if her feelings were genuine or simply a reaction to being caught. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said, my heart heavy with uncertainty. "This isn't just about what you did, it's about what it means for us." The weight of my words hung between us, an invisible barrier that felt impossible to cross. Susan reached across the table, her hand trembling as she sought to bridge the gap. "Please, let's talk about this. I want to make it right. I want to fight for us." Her desperation echoed in my mind, but I felt a flicker of doubt. Could I ever trust her again? As we sat there, the cafe bustling around us, I realized I was at a crossroads. I had to make a decision, to walk away from the pain or to fight for the love that once filled my life with joy. I looked into her eyes, searching for the truth behind the sorrow. In that moment, I knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but the choice was mine to make. As I sat across from Susan in the cafe, the air thick with tension, I felt the gravity of the moment pressing down on both of us. Her tear-streaked face reflected a storm of emotions, and I struggled to maintain my composure. The bustling sounds of the cafe faded into the background, leaving only the echo of our confrontation ringing in my ears. "Diego," Susan said, her voice trembling, "I know I've hurt you deeply, and I can't take back what happened, but I want to explain why it happened." She took a shaky breath, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. Part of me wanted to hear her out, to understand the reasons behind her betrayal, while another part of me was screaming to walk away from this heartbreak. "You felt lonely?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, laced with disbelief. "That's your excuse? You found comfort in my cousin?" The words slipped out, heavy with anguish. I felt a mix of anger and sorrow coursing through me, battling for dominance. "I know it sounds terrible," she replied, her voice cracking, "but George was there for me when I felt like you weren't. Things have been hard between us, and I made a horrible choice." Her eyes searched mine for understanding, but all I felt was betrayal. "I can't believe this is happening," I said, shaking my head. "You could have come to me. We could have talked about it. Instead, you chose to betray me with someone I trust?" The pain in my chest swelled as I spoke, each word a reminder of the trust that had been shattered. Susan reached across the table again, her hand trembling as she sought to connect with me. "Please, Diego, I want to make this right. I want us to work through this together. I love you, and I'm so sorry for what I did." Her desperation hung in the air, leaving me torn between lingering feelings for her and the raw hurt that throbbed in my heart. "I loved you too," I replied, my voice softening for a moment. "But love isn't enough when trust is broken. How can I ever believe you again?" The question hung between us, a chasm that felt impossible to bridge. "I know I have to earn that trust back," she said, her tone earnest. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I want to go to couples therapy, to really work on our issues." She looked at me with pleading eyes, and I could see the sincerity in her expression. But the scars of betrayal were deep, and the thought of reopening that wound felt unbearable. "I don't want to lose you, Diego," she continued, her voice a whisper. "I know I've made a mistake, but I believe we can be stronger if we face this together." Her words resonated within me, igniting a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. Still, doubt gnawed at my heart. Could we truly rebuild what had been broken? As I sat there, contemplating her offer, I found myself reflecting on our relationship, the laughter, the shared dreams, the moments of intimacy that had defined us. I thought about the love that had once felt so unshakable, now marred by betrayal. Was it worth fighting for, or was I simply holding on to the remnants of a love that had already died? "I need time," I finally said, my voice steady but weary. "I can't make a decision right now. This is too fresh, too painful." Susan nodded, her eyes glistening with tears, and for a moment we sat in silence, both grappling with the weight of our reality. As I left the cafe, the sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the beach. I walked along the shoreline, the sound of waves crashing against the sand mirroring the turmoil within me. I felt lost, adrift in a sea of confusion and heartache. The betrayal felt like a storm, and I was caught in its relentless grip. Just then, I spotted George in the distance, sitting on a bench overlooking the ocean. My heart raced as I approached him, a mix of anger and disbelief bubbling beneath the surface. How could he have done this to me? As I neared, he looked up, a hint of surprise flickering across his face. "Hey, Diego," he said, his tone casual, as if nothing was amiss. But I felt the weight of his betrayal heavy in the air. I didn't respond immediately, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers, but the words caught in my throat. "Can we talk?" I finally managed, my voice low. George nodded, concern etched across his features as he gestured for me to sit beside him. The ocean waves crashed rhythmically, a stark contrast to the turmoil churning inside me. "Is everything okay?" he asked, his brow furrowing. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that lay ahead. "No, everything is not okay," I replied, my voice firm. "I saw you with Susan." The words hung in the air, heavy with accusation. George's expression shifted, a flicker of guilt flashing across his face. "I didn't know you were there," he said defensively, his tone shifting. "It was a mistake, Diego. We didn't mean for it to happen." The words felt like a feeble excuse, and I could feel the anger rising within me. "A mistake," I echoed, incredulous. "You didn't think about the consequences? You didn't think about me?" The betrayal felt like a knife twisting in my gut, and I struggled to contain my emotions. "I'm sorry, man," he said, his voice low. "I never wanted to hurt you." But the sincerity of his apology felt hollow. How could he claim to care when he had crossed a line that was never meant to be crossed? "I trusted you," I said, my voice shaky. "You were family. You should have known better." The hurt was palpable, and I could see the weight of my words sinking in. George looked down, shame washing over his features. "I messed up," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't think about how it would affect you. I'm really sorry." But his apologies felt inadequate, a band-aid on a wound that ran deep. In that moment, I realized that this betrayal had not only affected my relationship with Susan, but had also shattered the bond I shared with George. Trust, once a stronghold, had crumbled, leaving behind a landscape of broken relationships. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said, my heart heavy with the truth. "This changes everything." George nodded, the weight of my words settling between us like an insurmountable barrier. As I walked away from him, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the beach. I felt a mix of sorrow and determination. I couldn't change what had happened, but I could choose how to move forward. The path ahead would be difficult, but I knew I had to prioritize my own healing and well-being. In the days that followed, I wrestled with my emotions, seeking solace in the support of friends and family. I confided in Daniel, who listened patiently as I recounted the events that had unfolded. His empathy felt like a balm to my wounded spirit, and I began to find strength in the connections that remained. But deep down, I knew the journey of healing would take time. I had to confront the pain, to acknowledge the betrayal, and ultimately to decide what kind of future I wanted for myself. Trust might be fragile, but I was determined to reclaim my life, one step at a time. The sun had set on a chapter filled with heartbreak, but a new dawn awaited, full of possibilities yet to be explored. As the weeks passed, I found myself navigating a whirlwind of emotions. The betrayal from Susan and George lingered like a shadow, haunting my thoughts and affecting my daily life. I spent many nights lying awake, wrestling with the decisions I had to make. The confrontation with George replayed in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling of anger and loss. I had trusted him, and that trust had been shattered. One afternoon, while sitting on the beach, I received a text from Daniel. "Hey, you want to grab coffee? I think we need to talk." I hesitated for a moment. Did I really want to relive the pain? But I knew Daniel had always been a good friend, and perhaps he could offer some perspective. I agreed, and we met at a small cafe overlooking the ocean. As I sat across from him, I could see the concern etched on his face. "How are you holding up?" he asked gently. I sighed, running my fingers through my hair. "It's been tough, man. I'm still trying to process everything. I thought I knew Susan, and now I don't know who she is anymore." Daniel nodded, his eyes filled with understanding. "You're allowed to feel hurt. What she did was unforgivable. But you also need to think about what you want moving forward." His words struck a chord within me. I had been so focused on the betrayal that I hadn't taken the time to consider my own needs and desires. "I don't know if I can ever trust her again," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "The thought of her with George, it feels like a knife in my back." Daniel leaned in, his expression serious. "Trust is hard to rebuild, Diego, but you deserve to be happy. You need to decide if you want to fight for this or if it's time to let go." As I pondered his words, I realized that I had been holding on to the past, clinging to memories of what once was. The love I had for Susan was genuine, but I couldn't ignore the reality of our situation. "I think I need to take a step back," I finally said, feeling a sense of clarity. "I need to focus on myself first. I can't just jump back into something that feels so broken." Daniel smiled, a look of relief washing over his face. "That sounds like a good plan. You deserve to heal, Diego. Don't rush yourself." We spent the rest of the afternoon talking, sharing stories and laughter, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. In the following days, I began to prioritize my well-being. I started working out again, taking long walks on the beach, and even picking up some hobbies I had neglected. I realized that I had let my relationship define me, and it was time to reclaim my identity. As the weeks turned into months, I had minimal contact with Susan. Occasionally, she would reach out with apologies, expressing her desire to make things right. Each time, I felt a mix of emotions: sadness, anger, and a lingering affection. But I remained firm in my decision to focus on healing. One day, while I was at the beach, I spotted Susan walking along the shoreline. My heart raced, a mix of anxiety and curiosity bubbling up inside me. I hadn't seen her in so long. As she approached, I could see the regret etched on her face. "Diego," she called softly, her voice trembling. I paused, unsure of how to respond. "Hey," I managed, my heart pounding. "It's been a while." She nodded, taking a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. I know I hurt you, and I can't change that, but I want to explain myself." I felt a rush of emotions, the pain of the past flooding back. "Susan, I don't know if I'm ready for this," I replied, my voice steady but cautious. "I understand," she said, her eyes glistening with tears, "but I need you to know that I've been working on myself. I've started therapy, and I realize how my actions affected you and our relationship." I listened, torn between the remnants of love I felt and the scars of betrayal that still throbbed. "I appreciate that you're trying to change, but it's hard for me to forget what happened," I admitted. "I know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I hope you can see that I want to make it right. I miss you, Diego. I miss us." Her words hung in the air, a bittersweet reminder of the love we once shared. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my decision. "I need more time," I said, my voice firm yet gentle. "I can't jump back into something that feels so broken. I have to prioritize my healing first." Susan nodded, understanding washing over her features. "I respect that. Just know that I'm here and I want to fight for us, if you'll let me." As she walked away, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I knew I had made the right choice for myself. The journey ahead would be challenging, but I was determined to focus on my own growth and happiness. Months later, I found myself sitting with Daniel at the same cafe where we had first talked about the betrayal. The sun was shining, and the ocean waves crashed rhythmically against the shore. "You look different," Daniel remarked, a smile on his face. "I feel different," I replied, a sense of peace enveloping me. "I've been working on myself, and it feels good." As we sipped our coffee, I reflected on the lessons I had learned. Trust is fragile, but self-love and healing are powerful. I had faced betrayal, but I had also discovered my own resilience. In that moment, I felt a sense of closure. The past would always be a part of me, but it no longer defined me. I was ready to embrace the future, whatever it may hold. As I looked out at the ocean, I realized that the waves would continue to crash, just as life would continue to unfold, bringing with it new opportunities and experiences. And I was ready to face them head-on.